So, I guess this is part 3. Part 3 of the same theme. Does anybody know anything about part 1 and 2? Or would you have to? Okay. We'll give you a refresh from the beginning. Once upon a time. Put your hand down. Put your hand down. Put your hand down. 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 Okay. Okay, so Narada Muni his life, he gives his own autobiography. He describes his life prior to being Narada Muni, and then his life as Narada Muni to his disciple. Who's Narada Muni's disciple? Starts with a V. Starts with a V. Vyasadeva. Vyasadeva is Narada's disciple. So Narada has many, in addition to Vyasadeva. Living at the same time as Vyasadeva was Krishna and the Pandavas. The Pandavas and Krishna were cousins. You paying attention or no? Okay. They were cousins because Krishna's father and the Pandavas' mother were brother and sister. Who were the Pandavas' mother? Starts with a K. Kunti. Kunti. Kunti and Krishna's father starts with a V. Vasudeva. Because Krishna is Vasudeva and his father's name is Vasudeva. The A sounds different. Vasudev's son was Vasudeva, Krishna. Vasudeva, Krishna. So Vasudeva and Kunti were brother and sister. And Narada was also then the spiritual master of the Pandavas. And the eldest of the Pandavas was, starts with a Y. Second one is Bhima, the third one is Arjuna, and the fourth and fifth are Nakula and Sahadeva, and the fifth one, Yudhisthira.
Yeah.
Very good. Okay. Yudhisthira. So, Narada is instructing Yudhisthira in the 7th canto, the very long story of the appearance of Lord Nrsingadev. We just celebrated Nrsinga's appearance day. In the Bhagavatam, it's narrated by Narada to Yudhisthira. Now Yudhisthira is going to become the king. Or perhaps at that time he was the king. So what's the king's duty? The king's duty is to see that the citizens understand how to live their lives by the codes of Dharma, the codes of the Vedas. That's the king's duty. The Brahmanas have to teach it, the king has to make sure they're doing it. So he asks, Yudhisthira asked Narada, wow, Prahlad Maharaj was such an elevated personality, perfected person, pure devotee. How does one become like that? Because I'm the king and I have to instruct and guide my citizens how to become like that. Otherwise I'm not doing my duty as a king. So could you explain how to get to that stage of perfection of spiritual life that Prahlad attained? That's a good question, isn't it?
Yeah.
Good question. So the answer comes in 5 chapters, but the beginning of the answer starts with chapter 11 of Canto 7, and that's what we've been discussing. And the topic is, well, to get to pure devotion, you need to live your life in a regulated way according to the codes of the Vedas. You follow the principles of Dharma. And they're called, the adjective used in Dharma is varnashram dharma. Varnashram, varna, and ashram. Varna means occupation. So the arms department, the head department, the belly department, and the legs department makes the body, social body, just like we have those parts to our body. Most people do. Some people are missing one of the parts. But most people have all four of them. Head, arms, torso or belly, legs. So the social body has those different parts, and there's different duties prescribed for the head department, the arms department. Just like Arjuna was the arms department. He was to give protection. Krishna wanted Arjuna to give protection. And Arjuna did it because he wanted to do what Krishna wants him to do. So there's this whole discussion in the last part of Canto 7 about the varnas, the occupations, those four just mentioned, and then the ashram. So there's four ashrams, just like you guys in the front here. You're in student life. Student life. And following student life depends, but commonly goes to family life. And from family life, retired from family life, and then the final stage is detachment from the world, sannyas. You heard that word before? Sannyas? Sannyas. Sannyas. Sannyas means complete detachment from worldly duties and just focusing on the higher duties, the spiritual duties of life. And that's part of society. It's a social function. Just like student life is a function, and family life is a function, and detachment from family life, and sannyas. Finally, this complete dedication to service to the Supreme Lord, and that's the function of that sannyas ashram. So that there's these four and four occupations, four ashrams. And so Narada says, if you want to get to that place where Prahlad Maharaj was, you have to follow the system of varnashram. But in order to follow the system of varnashram, you first have to become a human being. You're not paying attention. Pay attention. So, excuse me, we had a little hugging interaction yesterday, so I'm taking the opportunity to interact with her in a special way. I'm not picking on her. Right? You don't feel picked on, do you? Okay, good. So before entering into the varnashram system, he doesn't exactly use this language, but I'm making it simple by saying, first you have to become human. And then you can live by regulations, and then you can achieve perfection, assisted by those regulations. So what we've been discussing is those human characteristics. Human characteristics. And there's, of course, many. But in the list that Narada gives, there's 21. And so far we've only discussed one. We spent 2 days discussing one of them. Which one was it? Which of the qualities? We discussed it yesterday. And we discussed it the day before yesterday. We're going to mention it again today, so it can sink in.
You said it.
What? Tolerance. Very good. Tolerance. It's a human characteristic. There's many, many things. We won't repeat all that we did for 2 days. In the simplest of languages, continuing on with your service, your duties, performing your duties, without worrying about, or yielding to it's too hot to cook in the kitchen in the summer, or it's too cold to take your bath in the winter, or it's too something or too something. If the conditions are right, so I'm not going to do my service. You tolerate the features of duality of this world because it's a world of duality. World of duality is sometimes and sometimes. Sometimes there's honor, sometimes there's dishonor, sometimes there's happiness, sometimes there's distress. Sometimes it's hot, sometimes it's cold. Sometimes there's pleasure, sometimes there's pain. And I do my duty, regardless of the external duality. I'm fixed something, so tolerance is the external, and the internal is fixed in one thing. It's a human trait to have a higher value that you live by. And you just live by it because it's a higher value. And one who lives by higher values knows how to tolerate duality. You don't have to just get all absorbed in making the duality situation out there something other than what it is. There's some things you can't do anything about. It's Minneapolis. It gets cold in the winter. You can build a house and put in heating, but it's going to get cold outside. So you do XYZ things, but it's going to get cold outside in the winter. And so on. You carry on with your duty regardless. You don't make your life, but it's a human trait. We spend a lot of time discussing it. Now I'm going to cover a little faster 2 more. Okay, so actually, there's a Bhagavatam set. Can you get Canto 7 from the show? I just want to read the list. It still has the wrapper on it. But it's there. Okay.
We just got last one.
Huh?
We just got it last
Okay. I'm not picking on you. I like going to homes and breaking the plastic seal and the Bhagavatam sets in the show. One of my favorite activities. Okay, so Canto 7, Chapter 11, text number 8 through 12. Narada says to Yudhishthira, these are the general principles to be followed by all human beings. I'm not going to read the long list, it's 30. 21 human, 9 transcendental qualities. Truthfulness, mercy, austerity, parentheses, observing fasts on certain days of the month. Like Ekadasi, we just observed Ekadasi, right? So observing fast on Ekadasi. It's one of the human traits. Principles to be followed. Bathing twice a day. Tolerance. Discrimination between right and wrong. Control of the mind, control of the senses, non-violence, celibacy, charity, reading of scripture, simplicity, satisfaction, rendering service to saintly persons, gradually taking leave of unnecessary engagements, observing the futility of the unnecessary activities of human society, and so forth. So I want to cover 2 from this list, and there's so many, there's so much to describe, but just I picked 2. Iksha. Iksha. Here in this, the word for word is discriminating right and wrong, discriminating good and bad. What does it say? Iksha. Distinguishing between good and bad. That's a human trait. And sometimes it's a little difficult to discriminate between good and bad. Even if you're a good person, even if you have good training. Mahabharata, familiar with Mahabharata? In Mahabharata, there's a passage where the Pandavas are traveling in the forest and they're very thirsty, so they go to a lake to get water, and one by one, they taking lake from the water, they faint as if dead, taking the water. So Yudhishthira goes to see what happened. He sees his brothers and he goes to take water, and a yaksha comes out of the lake. Says, "You can't take water unless you answer my questions." "Sure, I'll answer your questions." So he asks questions about what is to be done, what is not to be done, what is good, what is bad, what is dharma, what is adharma. And it turns out the yaksha is in disguise, it's his father. The father of Yudhishthira is Yamaraj. He wants to check out his son and see if he did his homework. He gives him a surprise quiz. So, among many other questions he asks him, he says, there are situations in life, which we all confront from time to time, where there's this duty, and then there's that duty, and they're in conflict with one another. So when you run into a situation like that, what do you do? How do you discriminate good and bad, right and wrong, what is to be done, what is not to be done? And Yudhishthira says, you're right. It's very difficult. Therefore, not just this rule, that rule, but we look to the great souls, Mahajans, and we act according to the standard set by the great souls of the Mahajans. Prabhupada quotes this often, Mahajana yena katasa panta. So if you don't know who the great souls are, you're not likely to know what to do. And if you are not led or instructed or guided by somebody who's familiar with the lives and the teachings of those great souls, you're also likely to not know what's to be done and what's not to be done. And you'll do something thinking you're doing the right thing, and it may not be the right thing. We were discussing just this morning, Fernando brought up the point, good intention is good, but it's not good enough. You heard that? Good intention. Even the path to hell is paved by good intention. You heard that phrase before? I learned that lesson when I was about 6 years old. Here's how I learned that lesson. There's a little, keeping our young devotees here tuned in to hearing some stories, so it's relatable. The place where I grew up was just the climate was very much like Minnesota, but it was upstate New York. About the same latitude, just a little colder here, but, and I grew up on a lake. One of the geography of New York State, right in the middle, there's 5 long lakes, they call them the Finger Lakes. Lived on one of them. So, every 13 years, and it happened recently, there's this kind of an insect. It has a particular name, I forget the name. It's like a locust.
Cicada?
Huh?
Cicada.
Yeah. It has all these wings, and they come in massive numbers, like swarms of them, and they land on the trees, and you can hear them eating all the leaves of the trees, and when all the leaves are stripped, they go fly somewhere else, and I don't know why it comes and what the year's cycle is, but one year I was 6 years old and they came to town. And then you could hear them munching away at all the leaves on the trees. And my mother said, can you go to the garage and spray some black flag poison in the garage to keep those insects out of the garage? So I did that. And then in the garage I saw a kitty cat. And I thought, well, I'll spare the kitty cat from getting attacked by all those locusts, so I sprayed the kitty cat. It was good intention. And the next morning, there was the kitty cat on the floor of the garage, dead. So I learned a hard lesson at the expense of the kitty cat. The good intention isn't good enough. That has stayed with me. So you have to be guided by knowledge of what's good. And it goes beyond that, like, because sometimes this is good and that's good, and how do you balance between the this is good and that's good, and they're in conflict with each other. Mahajano yena katasa prantam. So that's this verse, or the term, iksha. Iksha. Discriminating. The discriminating has a bad connotation, like racial discrimination. That's a bad application of discrimination, and the connotation is bad. But what discrimination means is it's a function of intelligence. Because what intelligence, the function of intelligence is to discern one thing from another thing. Looking at our bright young devotees in the front. Have you ever taken an IQ test? No. No. The day will come when you take an IQ test. You're saying yes? They have?
What is an IQ test?
IQ stands for Intelligent Quotient. So what they do is, there's this series of questions, one after the next, and the clock is ticking, you have to keep going. And you're to say, it's multiple choice. These three are some of these, there's 4. And one of them is different than the other 3. Which one is different? You have to say why. But you're discriminating this from that. They're measuring your capacity to discriminate this from that. That's what intelligence does. Discerning or discriminating one thing from another thing. So to discriminate or discern between what's right and wrong, well, that's what intelligence does. And if you're absorbed in the material energy, you don't know what's right and wrong. But you may have good intention to do what's right, and you have conviction, otherwise you wouldn't do it, but it may not be right. And it could be harmful for you and or for others, and for the world we live in. There's a lot of that going on today. You know, the planet is being trashed by people who are greedy, and they know how to take and leave a mess for the next generation to clean up, so they can discriminate how to get what they want and leave a mess for the next generation to clean up, or whatever happens, they don't care. So that's misuse of intelligence. It's intelligence, but misuse of intelligence. So a human characteristic is to know, based on higher authority, the difference between right and wrong. And one of the ways that helps us is the Mahajans, great souls. So now I'm going to spend some time, particularly Chaitanya Charitamrita. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, you all know who is Chaitanya Mahaprabhu because we say his Panchatattva mantra, Sri Krishna Chaitanya, Prabhu Nityananda, Gaurava. So Lord Chaitanya's life is taught or explained in Chaitanya Charitamrita. I'm going to give some examples from Lord Chaitanya's life that teach us by example what's right and what's not right, what's good, what's bad, what's to be done, what's not to be done. By that example. I'll start with when Lord Chaitanya was very young. He was a teacher. Well, he was a student first, but he was so super excellent that even when he was little, he learned everything the teacher knew. Because he really doesn't need to learn anything, because he already knows everything. And so the teacher made him an apprentice, someone who would just assist him in teaching. And he was known at that time as Nimai Pandit. Nimai Pandit had a big school, because all the kids wanted to go to his school because he was the best. And all the parents wanted the kids to go to his school because he was the best. It wasn't even the local school district. It was right there in Navadvip. And then after some time, Nimai Pandit took initiation. He was still young. He took initiation. And he then started becoming very attracted to the chanting of the holy name of Krishna. And when he was living as a student before his initiation in Navadvip, there was this, it was after, the chanting of Krishna's holy name together every evening at the house of this one, Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Srivas, the house of Srivas Pandit. Every night, the devotees would get together and have kirtan. But it was really amazing kirtan. It was so amazing that it went on all night long. And when the sun rose, they were very sad. Oh no, we have to go to work and stop the kirtan. They must have had a nap during the day, but all night long kirtan. And the people in the village of Navadvip, they became upset. Especially the Brahmins became upset because everyone, it got so popular, we're losing our business. So they went to complain to the magistrate, who was a Muslim named Chand Kazi. And Chand Kazi told his constables, stop the kirtan and break the drum and tell them, if you don't stop this kirtan, we're going to convert you all to Muslims. We'll sprinkle water on you and you become Muslims. That was the standard at the time. Not anymore, but at that time. So they reported this to Lord Chaitanya. He broke the Mridanga. And he ordered us to stop chanting Krishna's name. So what did Lord Chaitanya do? Even before Martin Luther King had the civil disobedience movement, or Mahatma Gandhi had a civil disobedience movement, Chaitanya Mahaprabhu had a civil disobedience movement. He was the original. He said, all the devotees come together, thousands of angry Bengalis, carrying their torches so that at night they'd go to all the marketplaces and have loud kirtan in defiance of Chankazi. And then at night, as the sun set, they went right to the house of Chankazi. Thousands of angry Bengalis. I don't know if that means anything to some of you, but having lived in Mayapur, I know what it means. Don't mess. So what did Chankazi do? He hid under his bed. And Lord Chaitanya sent one of his messengers, go tell Chankazi to come and speak with us. I promise he'll be safe. So he came, and they had some discussions. Lord Chaitanya asked Chankazi, could you explain why in your scripture it says it's okay to kill your mother? our scripture doesn't say it's okay to kill your mother. Why do you say that? And then Lord Chaitanya said, when you were a small child, when children are very small, they take milk from the cow. So the cow is one of the mothers of the child. But in your scriptures it says it's okay to kill the cow. So why does your scripture say it's okay to kill your mother? Sankazi said, well, in your scriptures there's also Ashwamedha Yaga and Gomedha Yaga, there's some prescription. He said there's no killing of the cow or killing of the horse. It's the life of the animal is rejuvenated from old to a young age, not killing. You've misunderstood. So, and I'll ask you again, why does your scripture say it's okay to kill your mother? And Sankazi said, what you say is true. But in our scriptures, you find this, if you want, you can read it in Chaitanya Charitamrita. Our scripture is written by scholars, and scholars made many mistakes. There are actually many mistakes in our scriptures. I know that because I'm a scholar of our scriptures. But what can I do? This is part of my tradition, and I just follow the scripture. Then Lord Chaitanya said, well then let me ask you one thing. Why is it you gave the order to stop chanting, but then when we did the chanting, you didn't stop the chanting? Why is that? He said, I'll tell you privately. Come on inside, I'll tell you privately. He said, no. These are all friends, you can say publicly. He said, last night, in the middle of the night, this giant creature, half man, half lion, pounced on my chest. And with his nails he started ripping at my chest. Look, he opened his shirt and showed the marks of the nails of Lord Nrsimhadev. And he was roaring so loud I was terrified. And he said in a deep resonating voice, I should kill you, but I will spare you, but never break the mridanga drum again, and never stop the chanting of the holy name. And I was trembling, and he went away. And so today, all day when you're going to the marketplaces, I wasn't going to stop you. And I now pronounce for all of my generations of sons that may come after me and also rule in Navadvip, let this chanting of the holy name go on without restriction. So now, discriminating between iksha, discriminating between what is good and bad, what is to be done, what is not to be done. We're not to be blind followers. We're not to be blind challengers either. But we're supposed to, we, devotees of Krishna, or human beings, are supposed to understand, on the authority of the Vedas, for us, the coming from an infallible source, not the scribes and scholars that make mistakes, but the Vyasadeva and perfected souls that don't make mistakes, like Narada Muni. And from them, from their guidance, understand what to do. We don't kill our mother. We don't disrespect the cow. And so there's some items that we just won't have anything to do with, because it's the product of violence. It's an essence of harm and disrespect to one who should be respected. So we don't do those things. Iksha, discrimination between good and bad. And if people understand it or don't understand it, that we don't let that bother us or motivate us. We do what we act according to what that proper discrimination tells us. What's to be done, what's not to be done. So now here's another one. These are all from Chaitanya Charitamrita. many of you know that the associates of Lord Chaitanya, they all have their counterpart in Krishna Leela. You're aware of that, right? Like Lord Nityananda, who is he in Krishna's Leela? Balaram. Srivas, Pandit, who is he in Krishna Leela? Narada Muni. Like that. Each one of the associates of Lord Nityananda have their counterpart in Krishna Leela. So in Krishna's Leela, there's the Pandavas. Wherever Krishna appears, performing his worldly pastimes, the Pandavas are there. Arjuna and Krishna are always together in different appearances of Krishna and the forms of Krishna. So the Pandavas have their place in Lord Chaitanya's Leela. And the leading one, the father, Pandu, is Bhavananda Roy, and there are 5 brothers. One of them is a very important person in Chaitanya's Leela, is Ramananda Roy. Ramananda Roy was the governor of Madras, or Chennai, and he was under the rule of the king, Prataparudra. The king said, I'll give you a full pension, you've retired from that service, Lord Chaitanya wants you to be with him. So Ramananda Roy was maintained by the king, and he was in full-time service of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. You're going to hear some more about Ramananda Roy shortly. He was one of his sons, dear sons. But there's another one who had the title of his occupation, because in Orissa at the time, the last name often went in tandem with the occupation. So one of his sons was a tax collector. So his name was Gopinath, and his second name was Patanayak, although he was the son of Bhavananda Roy, because his occupation was a tax collector on behalf of the king. Unfortunately, Gopinath took advantage of his position, and he collected taxes very expertly from everybody, the citizens of the king, but he didn't give enough percentage of it to the king, and he kept an extra percentage for himself than what he was supposed to do. And after some time, the son of King Prataparudra came to figure it out. And he confronted Gopinath. You're not giving enough money to the king, to the treasury of the king. You're skimming off the top. You got this black market thing going on with your tax collection. So you should give the money to the king. And he said, Gopinath said, well, I don't have the money. He didn't deny it. He just said, I don't have the money right now, but what I can do is I can give you some horses. And then you can sell the horses and get your money that way. So Purushottam was the son of the king, Purushottam Jana. So Purushottam took the horses and came back with saying, this is the value of the horses. And Gopinath insulted him. He said, why is the price so low? The horses don't do this with their necks, because Purushottam had a tendency to do that, this, moving his neck. He insulted the prince directly on his face. So the prince went off angry, I'll get him. Went to his father, said he didn't give the money. And the king said to his son, the prince, well, by some means get the money, because it belongs to the treasury. So then the son, Purushottam, sentenced him to die in a public square. There's a wooden platform, it's called a changa. It's a wooden platform, and he was, for everyone's view, with a certain period of time, tied up And at a certain time, the wooden platform would move, and underneath there's upraised swords, and you fall on the upraised swords and die. Called a changa. Pretty, public death penalty. So the devotees of Lord Chaitanya saw this. They went and told Lord Chaitanya, "Help! Gopinath is on the changa, and Purushottam, the son of the king, is going to have him executed." And Lord Chaitanya said, "Why? Because he's didn't give all the taxes to the king." So this is discriminating between good and bad. Good lesson for us. Lord Chaitanya said, the king has every right. The king is the representative of God in Vedic culture. And the king has every right to punish the citizens as he sees fit. And if Gopinath is stealing the money that belongs to the king, he's to be punished. And he's using it for sense gratification, going and seeing dancing girls, then he should be punished again. So don't bring these kind of problems to me. If you bring it again, I'm leaving Puri. What to do? Gopinath's going to be killed. So one of the associates of Lord Chaitanya, named Kashi Mishra, he went to the king and said, "King Prataparudra, did you know that Gopinath Patanaik is being sentenced to death on the Changa for not giving sufficient taxes?" He said, "Whoa, I told my son, the prince, to get the money. He didn't say kill him." How are you going to get the money if you kill him? But you can say this, that I give the order that Gopinath should be released. He should be given the full collection of the taxes again, and I'll give him double the salary. You can keep double the amount, I don't care. And Kashi Mishra said, no, you don't understand. Lord Chaitanya won't like that. Because he'll think that you're using Lord Chaitanya's position to get Gopinath free. He said, no, it's not like that. Bhavananda Roy and his 5 sons, they're like family. When a family member does something like this, you don't take it so seriously. They're like family. Just tell Lord Chaitanya, it's just my affection for Bhavananda Roy and his family members. It's nothing to do with Lord Chaitanya at all. It's just my affection for them. Tell him that. So then Gopinath was awarded, given a silken chadar wrapper as a gesture of honor after he did what he did, and restored to his position as a tax collector and doubled his salary and all of those things. So Bhavananda Roy, the father, came with his 5 sons, including Ramananda Roy and Gopinath and the other 3 brothers, and fell at Lord Chaitanya's feet. Saying, your mercy has spared our family from a great calamity. And we're indebted to you. And Lord Chaitanya said, please understand, you're my eternal associates. In all of my appearances, he's now declaring his divinity. In all of my appearances in every lifetime, you're with me. You're my eternal associates. You're very, very dear to me. And he turned to Gopinath. And Gopinath fell at his feet and said, all these things you've done, and I'm this degraded person. My younger brother, Ramananda Roy, you've taken away all of his opulence, but you've given him detachment and attachment to you. So you gave me all these good fortunes, but I don't have the good fortune of detachment. So please give me this benediction of detachment, so that I can be fully attached to your lotus feet and have nothing to do with cheating and sense gratification anymore in my life. just service to you. So Lord Chaitanya, the story ends with Lord Chaitanya saying, just do this one request. Never again take money that belongs to the king. And never again, whatever it is that you have, that you do have, use for sense gratification. Use it for service to the Vaishnavas and religious purposes. But never indulge yourself in sense gratification from this day forward. This is my instruction to you. It's a very important principle in the lives of Hare Krishna devotees that we follow the laws of the land. Now, the government may not be the ideal government, but we follow the laws of the land. In principle. I'll just share this. One of the places that I visit is China. And it's a little difficult to practice Krishna consciousness in China because I've sat with a government officer where he said, China is a government of law. Number two, in China there are 5 recognized religions. He recited them. It's like a sutra, over and over again. There are 5 recognized religions. And you're a practitioner of religion. Oh, it was a question, are you? Well, it's culture. It's a spiritual. I just kept asking, is this a religion? No. 3 strikes and you're out. So we're practicing Krishna consciousness in China, but respect of the government is there because they've observed us under a magnifying glass for 15, 20 years. And they know that we're not anti-government, but we're exercising religious practice in a country where there are 5 recognized religions, and we're a country of law, government of law. We're breaking the law. And they know that we're breaking the law, but we're not anti-government, so they look the other way. And we know that they know. They know that we know that they know. So they don't bother us because we're not anti-government. We do good things. And we help people. They know that. So they've scrutinized us. In fact, the government has published the Chinese translation of Srimad Bhagavatam. Yeah. It took the BBT 8 years of negotiating because everything, it's not exactly the government, but it's the government wing of printing. So it's the government. And they had their scholars carefully go through the entire Srimad Bhagavatam in Chinese, translated. And they signed a contract with the BBT that they would print Srimad Bhagavatam. And we could buy copies from them. So they're monitoring everything. It's controlled. But for good reason in one sense. Anyway, so they know who we are, they know what the Bhagavatam is, they know that. So we're working within the system how you have to do things in China to work within the system. They know everything about what we're up to. They know everything. We know that they know everything. They know that we know that they know everything. And we get along just fine. I can give stories. But we don't break the law in the sense of don't pay your taxes or something or something or something. We abide by the law of the land. This is Lord Chaitanya's instruction in this pastime. And as you're living your life, when something comes your way that's ordained by the law of the land, you use it only for service to the Vaishnavas and religious purposes. You don't use it for sense gratification. That's discrimination of good and bad, or right and wrong. In that story of Gopinath. valuable? I mean, it's human, it's kind of common sense. You follow the law, you don't break the law. But this tells us very clearly what Lord Chaitanya wanted. Then there's so many others. I'll just do a couple others. How much time do we have? Do you know who is Sanatana Goswami? Either of you? You know the 6 Goswamis of Vrindavan? You've heard of them?
Yeah.
6 Goswamis of Vrindavan. So the two brothers are Rupa and Sanatana. Sanatana Goswami and Rupa Goswami. Then there's 4 others, but they're chief amongst the 6 Goswamis. So Sanatana Goswami, before he had Lord Chaitanya's association, he was the prime minister of what's now like maybe half of India today, under the government of Nawab Hussain Shah. He was his prime minister. And Rupa Goswami was his home minister, and their younger brother was the finance minister. They ran the government. So the king could go off and conquer new territory, expand his kingdom. But Sanatana Goswami had no interest in that. He left all of that to go to live in Vrindavan. And when he was living in Vrindavan, he very much wanted, because Lord Chaitanya instructed him to go stay there. So he very much wanted to visit Lord Chaitanya. And you know your geography of India? You know where Delhi is? No? Okay. Here's India. Oh, here's India. Delhi is kind of north, maybe a little to the western side, and way over here is where Lord Chaitanya lived, along the Indian Ocean. Puri. Way over here. And there was no trains, no cars, no airplanes. It was a long walk. It took weeks. So Sanatana Goswami, because he was very scholarly, he studied very carefully and inquired very carefully the path that Lord Chaitanya took when he traveled from Puri to go to Vrindavan and in fact Puri. And part of that travel was through the Jharkhand forest. Heard of Jharkhand, right? It's one of the states in India. Jharkhand?
Jharkhand, yeah.
Jharkhand?
Yeah.
Jharkhand. Used to be Bihar, but now it's also Jharkhand. Heard of that? No. It's a forest. So as he was passing through the forest, he would go to the places where forest-dwelling people would stay, and he'd ask them, what did Lord Chaitanya do here? What did he say? What happened? Just hearing about Lord Chaitanya all the way. All the way to Puri. And somewhere along the way, he drank water where he shouldn't have. And so his body got sick. And the particular disease he got was little sores on his body that then would ooze this liquid, smelly, yucky stuff, pus, from his body. So he was thinking, oh no. I mean, he didn't mind the difficulty. The difficulty was, Lord Chaitanya is so affectionate to me, he'll want to embrace me, and when he embraces me, all this yucky stuff will go on his body. So he was contemplating all the way to Puri, what to do, what to do, what to do. He finally decided, I know what to do. I'll see Lord Chaitanya, I'll pay my respects, and then when the Rath Yatra comes, I'll throw my body into the cart of the Jagannath cart, the wheel, and I'll get crushed and I'll die in the presence of Lord Chaitanya and go back to Godhead. He didn't say anything, that was just his thought. So he came to Puri, and some days passed, and Lord Chaitanya, because he he's omniscient. He knows everything. So he said one day to Sanatana, you know, you are surrendered to me, and so your body belongs to me. And I have plans for your body, so you cannot take your own life. You'd be a thief. It's my property. You can't take my property. And besides, if it would be so easy to go back to God and just throw yourself under the cart of the Jagannath cart, the wheel of Jagannath cart, then everyone would do it. But that's not how you go back to Godhead. So give up this idea. Whoa. What to do? What to do? And Lord Chaitanya, every time he sees me, he wants to embrace me, and I feel so bad. So one day Lord Chaitanya sent for Sanatana Goswami to come see him in the middle of the day. In the place where Sanatana Goswami was staying, compared to where Lord Chaitanya was staying, it was the middle of the day, and he took a very distant path by the sea. And the sand during midday in the summer months is so hot. Your feet burn, literally. Blister. So Sanatana Goswami took that path and he came to see Lord Chaitanya, and Lord Chaitanya said, let me see your feet. You got blisters. What path did you come? I came by the path by the sea. Why did you come by the path by the temple? There's shade there, there's tall buildings. He said the priests are coming and going. And the priest may rub against this yucky body with all these sores. And that'll just contaminate the priest and have to go worship Lord Jagannath. So I went by the sea. He said, but your feet are blistered, they're burned, literally. He said, that's not tolerance. That's not a problem. The other would have been a problem. To offend the brahmanas with this yucky body. Lord Chaitanya said, you're a true devotee. Sanatana. Then later, one of the associates of Lord Chaitanya was named Jagatananda Pandit, young and very dear to Lord Chaitanya and the sannyasi. So Lord Sanatana Goswami is just pouring out his heart. What to do, what to do. Jagatananda said, I've got an idea. You can just stay up till the Rath Yatra, and as soon as Rath Yatra is over, then go back to Vrindavan. Then you won't have to have this yucky body and smearing Lord Chaitanya's body and things like that. So Sanatana thought, that's a very good idea. He didn't say anything, but he thought, that's a very good idea. Then Lord Chaitanya called Jagatananda and chastised him severely. He said, who are you, Jaga, to instruct such a superior Vaishnava as Sanatana Goswami? He's your superior in every way, spiritually and age and everything. You know, this is a big offense. So, part of the discrimination between right and wrong is recognizing your spiritual or social position and not feeling yourself equipped to instruct a superior person. Now, Jagatananda wasn't instructing. Jagatananda was just making a suggestion because Sanatana was pouring his heart out. He didn't know what to do, so it was just a suggestion. But Lord Chaitanya wanted to teach. Don't do that. Finally, one day, Lord Chaitanya came to visit Sanatana Goswami and approached him, and he backed off. No, no, don't touch me, don't touch me. This body is a mess. Lord Chaitanya swiftly went forward and embraced him. And all of a sudden, all the sores on his body disappeared. Like a miracle cure. And in the presence of Haridas Thakur this took place, and Haridas Thakur said, just see what Lord Chaitanya has done. He, on purpose, intentionally, by design, he's put you in a situation where you're completely dependent upon him. You can't do anything, turn left, turn right, go sideways, you can't do anything. just completely depended upon him. And they took away the problem. You're the greatest object of Lord Chaitanya's mercy. And what did Sanatana Goswami said? Actually, you're the greatest object of Lord Chaitanya's mercy. Because you're perfect both in your behavior and your speaking. Prachar and achar. You're the example, the acharya for the chanting of the holy name. And your conduct is perfect. You're the greatest recipient of Lord Chaitanya's mercy. I chose that particular pastime from Chaitanya Charitamrita to share just this. It's a small point, but it's an important point. When we're in the association of devotees, we have to, it's part of culture, part of being a human being, that we respect seniors. And there are different ways to respect seniors and different ways of understanding who's senior. But we respect. And we can act in such a way that we can say something. You can't say, we're not obliged to say nothing. But observance of etiquette is part of what's to be done. Discriminating right and wrong. I told this, I'm going to tell one other Bhagavatam story. I'm running out of time, so I won't be able to go to the next one. But we discussed this morning, this is a passage from Srimad Bhagavatam I like very much, is the very first Krishna Katha that is presented in Srimad Bhagavatam. It comes in Canto 1, Chapter 7. Because the first 3 chapters are kind of summary of the subject matter. The next 3 chapters are pretty much how Srimad Bhagavatam appeared in this world and its unique position. And that section ends with the first few verses of Chapter 7. That's Vyasadev's trance. Because he's instructed by Narada, sit in trance of meditation, fix your mind on the personality of Godhead, and what you realize should be the subject of your revision of Srimad Bhagavatam. So those realizations of Vyas are super significant. And as soon as that section is over, then the sages, then becomes the Krishna Katha part. The sages say, wow, the thing is to hear the topics of Krishna. Topics of Krishna, please. So the first topic of Krishna that Sutta Goswami speaks is about the Pandavas. We discussed it in the morning class. So the Pandavas are Krishna Katha because they're connected with Krishna. You won't find the Pandavas without Krishna. You won't find Krishna without the Pandavas. It's Krishna Katha to hear about them. So the narration goes to Ashvatthama, the son of Dronacharya, kills the sleeping sons of the Pandavas, 5 boys in their tents, and Ashvatthama sneaks into the tent. He's a Brahmana, and he sneaks into the tent, and with a sword he cuts off their head while they're asleep. And he brings the heads, 5 of them, to Duryodhana. And even Duryodhana is disgusted. He thought Duryodhana would be really happy. He was like cutting off all the descendants of the Pandavas, because they were the only ones left, except Maharaj Parikshit still in the womb of Uttara. So when Draupadi found out in the morning that her sons had been killed, Arjuna came before her and said, this Ashvatthama, the killer of your 5 sons, I am going to capture him and bring him back, and when you offer the funeral rites to your 5 sons, you can stand on his severed head. Whew. Pretty intense. So he went chasing after Ashwatthama. Many things happened. He caught him, brought him back. And he's standing in front of Draupadi with one hand on his hair and the other hand with a sword raised ready to chop his head off. Right in front of Draupadi. And Draupadi says, don't do it. You took a vow. He didn't say all these things, but you took a vow on my behalf. I release you from the vow. Please don't do it. Yudhisthira says, don't do it. Bhima says, do it. And Krishna says, do it. And gives reasons why. Don't think that by taking the life of Ashwatthama you'll incur the sin of killing a Brahmana. Because what he did is not the conduct of a Brahmana. He deserves punishment, death penalty for what he did. No bad reaction for you. Do it. Now, what's Arjuna supposed to do? No discriminating between good and bad. Something you're supposed to do and something you're supposed to do. And they're two different things. Kill him, don't kill him. Prabhupada explains in his purport, Krishna arranged this just to show how exalted is Arjuna. Because he understood the intention of Krishna. Because sometimes we don't know the intention behind things. And we're confused. And it's very contrasting positions. The explanation given of why Draupadi didn't want Ashwatthama to be killed was because Kripi would suffer. Who would suffer the consequence of Ashwatthama being killed is the mother. And the mother, Kripi, at least Draupadi has her husbands, but Kripi lost her husband. All she has left is her son. So she shouldn't have to bereave the loss of her son without even her husband, Drona. So she shouldn't suffer like that. Compassion. But the laws of Manu say that cold-blooded murder like that has to be punished. Otherwise, Ashwatthama will have to suffer in this life and the next life for the heinous crime of murder. So he has to be, but he can't be. And Arjuna would never go against anything his brother said. He wouldn't do anything unless his brother said, and if his brother said no, he wouldn't do it. What a difficult position. But he understood Krishna's intention, so he killed him without killing him. For one who has once been honored, dishonor is worse than death. So he cut his hair and the jewel in his hair and left him and hatched and banished him. Similar thing happened with Jayadratha. So we're not Arjuna. We don't know Krishna's intention, but we have to then follow those that do know Krishna's intention. We have to become familiar with the scriptures. And at one last point, and I'm going to end. This is a little sharing from our GBC meeting in India this year. Every other year, for the last 3 years, we've invited all of ISKCON's gurus, sannyasis, and GBC to come together for a gathering. Really, these days everything has to have an acronym. It's SGGS. Sannyasis, gurus, and GBC Sangha. Because going into the future, our founder Acharya isn't physically with us, and those that are giving the greatest leadership are the GBCs, the gurus, and the sannyasis. Just naturally so. And the number of sannyasis in ISKCON, it's a growing number. As it grows and grows and grows, And those sannyasis have their influence upon the membership of ISKCON, naturally so, and appropriately so. And the number of gurus proliferates more and more. We need this group of people, the leaders, GBC gurus and sannyasis, to be talking with one another and understanding one another's needs and perspectives on things and what's really important. Yes, really important. That we understand one another and we're communicating with one another and working cooperatively with one another. So we were together for 3 days, and there was the one whole day was what's most important items, not like 500, but most important to preserve ISKCON going into the future, and what's our role to help do that? Good question. And 3 things came out of it. And just a little sharing, as I did the first day that I was here from our GBC meeting, so you know what are those people doing anyway. We have this group. Literally, just before coming to Minneapolis, I was in New Jersey attending a 4-day meeting of the GBC Organization Development Committee, going out over the next 50, 100 years. The organization is going to be very diverse. What's the structure? What do we want in place for the well-being of our organization in different ways? So one of the things that was done by this Organization Development Committee was this really brilliant devotee from Russia who was in charge of their BBT in Russia. His name is Gaura Krishna. He's like he's very scholarly, kind of like an eccentric genius. And so he was given the assignment, study religions of the world, Judaism, Islam, Christianity, and different branches of those, and who made it and who didn't make it and why. So, he did his PhD thesis on, did a whole thorough study, amazing, detailed. So, keeping it really short, in the initial stages of the first generation of the great, when Christ was present on earth and Muhammad was present on earth and whoever are the other great personalities on, the Mormons and Joseph Smith, and what happened during that great personality's presence, and then the next generation, which ones made it and which ones didn't, and why. Keeping it really, really simple. In the 3rd generation, there's Prabhupada, there's Prabhupada's disciples, and the disciples of Prabhupada's disciples. That's the 3rd generation. What's missing is not the same sense of intent of the founder and the context of things that he did, but there's his teachings. And then the other category is issues. We all know about issues. And issues can tear apart our organization if we don't know the intent, the context, and worst of all, if we don't know the teachings. So, we spent a whole day, what are the important ones, and it came up, it's really super ultra important for this 3rd generation, all of you, to thoroughly, carefully, systematically study Prabhupada's books. And not just like somebody that's Brahminical, they'll do the studying, we'll just kind of do our work. But the members of the organization need to understand the importance to preserve ISKCON. So we'll have ISKCON 100, and we'll have ISKCON 75. They'll still be in ISKCON when your children are adults. That strikes home, I think. You must study Prabhupada's books very carefully. Not just, take Bhakti Shastri. I mean, take Bhakti Shastri, but not just. Thoroughly, deeply understand, because within the books, you have the intent of the founder. It's there. It's there. He gave it. Explore it, discover it, and become very, very familiar with it. And what it is that he wanted was the goal, and the means to reach the goal, and everything. The Bhaktivedanta purports. It's the boat to cross the ocean of material existence that he left behind. Get on the boat. Read Prabhupada's books very, very carefully. So I appreciate very much that the homes, almost all the homes so far that I've been, you have Srimad Bhagavatam. Fantastic. Take the covers off and read them. There's benefit just it sits in your home. It says that in the scripture. Just by keeping the Bhagavatam, just respecting, you get spiritual benefit, great spiritual benefit. But to preserve the international society, the Sangha of devotees, I don't mind saying it 100 times, because it's so important. This generation must read Prabhupada's books and understand them and bring them inside. Otherwise, ISKCON isn't going to continue. Just historically, it will not continue. It will continue if the teachings become very clear in the hearts and the lives of the devotees. I don't know if any of you have ever visited Udupi. When you visit Udupi, what do you hear? Madhvacharya this, Madhvacharya that, Madhvacharya this, Madhvacharya that. Why has it remained strong? Because they know the teachings of Madhvacharya. You follow. And ISKCON is new. I mean, the line of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu isn't new, but ISKCON is new, and there's our founder Acharya. And we're all at the feet of our founder Acharya, and his teachings are abundantly available to preserve this international society. Just like, you live here in Minneapolis, I visit here, but people come and go. I mean, just in the course of being here. Somebody that was in Richmond, now they're here. Somebody that was in New Jersey, and now they're here. And somebody that was here is somewhere else. And because we have this international society, we can get association wherever we go, largely. And to preserve that great asset, we must read Prabhupada's books. It's just, so this group, the sannyasis, gurus, and GBCs, placed high priority. So I'm doing it right now. I have all three of those hats. A red one, a blue one, a green one. So, read Prabhupada's books. Read Prabhupada's books. Read Prabhupada's books. Because that will preserve ISKCON. And please don't neglect reading Prabhupada's books. Don't don't fall in that category, because then someone will have to carry you because you didn't read Prabhupada's books. And like this iksha, you won't be able to discriminate between good and bad, right and wrong. You'll have your own idea, and the person next to you on the other side of the room and over there, they have their idea, and we'll have chaos. We won't have ISKCON. So read Prabhupada's books, and then internationally, not just Richmond and New Jersey and some other place, but worldwide. It's truly an international society for Krishna consciousness, an international organization. And we need that. It's the will of our founder Acharya to have, and it's his will because it was the will of Bhakti Siddhanta, it's his will because it was the will of Bhakti, it was his will because it was the will of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. We have that line to preserve and uphold. We have the means. Diksha. Discriminating between good and bad. on the human level and then moving towards the transcendental and spiritual level. That's the light that we're following. It's darkness in the age of Kali. But there's light in this age of darkness. And that's the Bhagavatam. As brilliant as the sun in the age of darkness. I didn't get very far, I just covered one Diksha. I didn't even get all the wonderful examples. I got a whole page full of examples. But I think I said what I wanted to say, at least the essence of it. And by reading these books, it becomes, you carry it in your heart. It's like that. Okay. Kids, you were fantastic. I know it's pretty boring. But you told some stories. You learned about Yudhisthira and Vyasadeva and Gopinath Bhattanayak, Jagatananda Pandit, Sanatana Goswami. And the more you hear, the more those personalities become real to you. Okay. Any comments? Discussion?
Talking about transferring this great asset which Srila Prabhupada has given us. Our children here are the next generation, and the best way to learn is to teach them, teach others. So many of the sub-religions within Indian sub-religion like Chinmaya Mission, things like that, have very good schooling, children's schooling system. I was wondering, and even like Ramanujacharya's followers, they are celebrating 1,000 years. They also have good books, workbooks and all. So I was wondering if...
They don't have. But go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, we could, I know Mataji's are having school here, and many people are are teaching kids, but it appears we need a uniform database of all those kids. I know ISKCON Desire Tree has a lot of them, and we can...
Well, here's some news for you. In North America, there's a group, I can give you the phone number because I remembered to bring my phone today. There's a group of devotees that are gathering up all the curriculum and best practices and so forth for children's education. Primarily it's Sunday school, but it's going to other areas, including homeschooling and other models of education. It's all going to be available on the website. And they're spending lots and lots and lots and lots of hours gathering the material and organizing it so that it's accessible.
So it's a work in progress or something?
It's still in progress, but the report that I've gotten is they're making a lot of progress. They're energized. What they need now largely is persons from different places to give them their materials. They have, anyway, so they're working on it. So it can just be fully available. Then you can pick and choose. And it have names of people, oh, I like that one. Can you tell me how you do it over there in Houston, or how you do it over there in North Carolina, or whatever it is.
We could also contribute to that, if you like.
Fantastic.
Can we know the name?
Yeah, as soon as we're done, you all levels of education, certainly children's education, all levels of education, and all variety, leadership education, scriptural education, education and training. I mentioned two of the things that are recently launched. And so, we're an educational organization. And we have to live according to what our teachings say. Small item. Go ahead.
Anything else? Yes.
So,
question, a little off topic in regards to, law of the land and whatnot. But, what if, like certain examples that we might not face, but throughout history where it's been like corrupt or just downright evil laws?
Well, then you act by in such cases, you act according to the higher principle. The higher principle is the principle of Dharma. If something is simply corrupt, then you follow that principle of Dharma. Just like Arjuna. And we're not archers, but follow the principle of Dharma when something is so off and corrupt and evil. Follow? Okay. Anything? Okay. I have an early flight tomorrow morning. I'm going to the next place. And then after that, the next place, and then the next place. New York Rath Yatra is the following weekend, so, and PDC in New York, so I'm going to be